Dallas at Tampa Bay. Who do you got? Hey, good morning, everyone. It is Craig Bennett, a.k.a. Cash Cake, back with another Underdog Fantasy Pick'em video. Monday Night Football for the playoffs seems a little bit odd to me, but hey, I'll take football any day of the week we can get it. We're going to talk about Underdog Pick'em. I'm going to talk about the games. We're going to go down each and every player, kind of give you some statistics to look at, maybe some trends you want to play, and then we'll pick out a few plays that I do like. Maybe you want to jump on them, fade them. But again, I want to give you as much analysis as I can and bring you as much value as I can. If you do not have an Underdog fantasy account, use that promo code CashKeg and get 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Link is in the description below. And if you like these videos, you want more Underdog videos, please let me know by liking this video, subscribe to the channel. Just say something in the comments. Let me know if you like this layout or something a little bit different, and I'll do my best to accommodate. And again, let's get after it. All right, we have Underdog Fantasy Pick'em up on the desktop here. They got a sweet mobile app you can download as well. We are on NFL. We are on Pick'em. They got rivalries as well in this game you can pick, which is kind of cool. It's definitely one of my favorite features that they have. And basically, you're just picking between two players. One player might get spotted a few rushing yards. The other one would start, at 0. So we won't go through these, but they're pretty neat to check out. It's one of my favorite options that they do have. Also, they have insurance. So if you don't want to pick a 5-man where you have to get all of them right, you can miss one. You can turn this insurance on, which is kind of nice to have as well, especially when you're going 4 and 5-man. So make sure you turn that on if you're playing 4 or 5-mans, just to give yourself a little bit of insurance. All right, Dak Prescott. 244.5 passing yards. This line has actually moved down a little bit. I've seen it out there at 246.5. It might have opened even higher than that. Now, he has cleared this number in 6 of his last 8 games. However, he played Tampa Bay way back on September 11th, where he only threw for 134 passing yards. Tampa Bay's defense ranked 23rd in the NFL in passing yards allowed at only 203. Now, they do give up some rushing yards, around 120 rushing yards a game. So I'm going to think that's how they're going to attack him here. I'm going to lean lower on this. This is a game that's kind of tough to decide exactly how they're going to go, just for the sole fact that each team has a ton of weapons. So they can go so many different ways. And it's tough to pick out which direction you think they're going to go. On the road like this, it's really tough. So again, all I can give you the stats on this. I'm going to stay away from Dak. I think this game, like I said, I've seen a lot of people lean lower on him on this projection. Completion wise, he's at 21.5 completions. Over this season, he's only hit this mark in 6 of the 12 games he has played. He's been out with injury quite a bit. So only about 50% of the times he hit this. He only 14 completions in that game against Tampa Bay. Fantasy points at 17.85. Again, if we think they're going to go run heavy, and this is why I always say this and preface this, is make sure you build a game script out in your mind when you're building your slips, because you just don't know. If you think it's going to be a heavy pass attack, then you want to go lower on the running game, and then vice versa. Rushing yards at 15.5 for Dak. He's only done this 4 times this year. Had 11 against Tampa Bay, but only 4 times in the 12 games he's played this year at the 15.5. That line was higher than this. It got pushed down as well. So it looks like a lot of the projections are getting pushed down. Pass attempts at 34.5. Again, he cleared this in 8 of 12 games this year. I'm sorry, I take that back. He's cleared this in 5 of 12 games this year. In the last 3 games, he did clear it in 35, 41, and 37. He had 29 against Tampa Bay. Now, if they get behind, I can see them going to the pass pretty heavy here, but they'll probably want to control the clock with a run. Again, I'm just going to kind of stay away from Dak a little bit here. Tony Pollard. Now, they got the 2-headed backfield here with Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. And, by all means, I think, Pollard's the better back, but Zeke's got all the money. So If we look at this, we look at Tony Pollard, over the last 4 games of the season, though, 42, 75, 19, and 19 rush yards. Line sitting at 47.5 with him. He played about the last 5 games. He averaged around 50% of the snaps. So it's real tough. He's got to be really efficient in these snaps, only playing around 50% of the snaps. So it's really tough to get excited about him. Yes, at Tampa Bay, he only had 8 rushing yards, but and he played 50% of the snaps, but they weren't using him to his full potential at that point. Receiving yards at 22.5. The last 3 games, he's had 31, 61 against Jacksonville and Philadelphia. We might use him a little bit more out of the backfield. I like this one a little bit more receiving yards. I can see him dumping off to him a little bit, so I don't mind this one. I'm going to stay away from the rushing and receiving yards here. Again, it's just how many snaps is he going to get compared to Zeke? If we're going to look at receptions, he's done pretty well over his last handful of games, 4, 4, 6. So I think I'm going to like him better as a receiving back here than the rushing yards here. So, if I want to take one higher of receptions or receiving yards, I don't mind either 2 of these. I think this is where I would sit at. We'll put up receiving yards here, but one of these 2 is what I'm looking at. Rushing attempts at 11.5. Again, in the middle of the season, he was doing real well, getting fed the ball quite a bit. Zeke was out for some of those games. But over the last 4, 10, 19, 9, and 7, it's tough to think that he's going to get 12 carries with Zeke back there as well. Again, maybe lower on the rushing and higher on the receiving is kind of how I would read that, but it's still pretty tough. On Zeke's side of the ball here, if you see his receiving yards, they're not very high at all. He just does not get the ball out of the backfield much at all. He actually had -3 receiving yards against Tampa Bay in that game. But over his last 3, 6, nothing, and nothing. And again, he's playing around 50% of the snaps as well. They're just basically splitting it. So it's really hard to take him here. I would take lower than this. But again, 7.5 is such a low line. I just kind of want to stay away from it. Rushing yards, again, he's hit this. If we're looking at this number at 49.5, he's actually cleared this in 11 of 15 games that he has played this year. Had 52 rushing yards against Tampa Bay way back there in September. And again, it's a tough number. I still lean Zeke more as the rusher and Pollard more as the receiving back in this game, but things could change. Fantasy points at 8.95. For him to get this, I think all you got to do is get yourself a touchdown. So if they get down in the end zone and he can punch one in, which they like to use him down there, I don't mind if you want to do that. He has had a touchdown in basically every game since October 16th, except for Washington. Before that, he had touchdowns in 9 consecutive games. So having that at 8.95, maybe you want to take the higher at that mark. Rushing attempts at 12.5. Again, he had this well on the over in every game this year, except for the one against Tampa Bay with 10. And then the last one against Washington. He's went over this in 13 of 15 games. So again, I would lean more on the rushing yards here. If you want to take, I like the fantasy points or rushing attempts if I was going to choose one. If they're going to try to control the ground game, it would definitely be on Zeke. I'm going to take higher fantasy points. I think he does get in the box here. And if that happens, it won't take long to get him that 8.95 fantasy points. So that's where we're going to look at that. Kind of look at the receiving stuff and go to CeeDee Lamb, see what he's got going on. We know he's the alpha on this team. He only had 29 receiving yards back in that game against Tampa. But again, that was a long, long time ago. He's cleared this number in 3 of his last 5 games, 126, 120, 100, and then 52 against Washington. He's going to be the guy they're going to look at. There's really 2 guys that I like to look at when I play any sort of plays on this team. It's basically CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. He looks at those guys a ton. I don't, at 6 receptions and 75.5 yards, I'm going to kind of stay away here. If we look at the 6 receptions mark, he has cleared that number in 6 of the 17 games he has played and 3 of the last 4. It's just a spot where I don't really feel comfortable taking it, to be honest with you. Reception yards, again, same kind of thing. I just don't feel super comfortable, but I'd lean higher if you wanted to pick one of those. Looking at Gallup and seeing what he's got going on, I don't think I honestly want to take a chance with him either. If we're going to look at Noah Brown either, I don't really want to take a chance With Noah Brown, he's had less than 18.5 reception yards in the last 3 games. And it's just not something I love. Now, he did go off for 68 against Tampa Bay, but again, that was a completely different team. We had some injuries and whatnot, and so it's completely different back at the beginning of the year. It's just not something I want to take a chance on, a guy like that. Not with Dak. He likes Schultz and he likes Lamb. So Schultz is the guy I do have a little bit of love for here. If we kind of look what he's done, the last 5 games, 87, 15, 43, 56. He had 62 reception yards against Tampa Bay back at the beginning of the year. Reception sitting at 4. He's only cleared this number in 3 of his last 5 games. He did have 7 against Tampa Bay, but again, in a playoff game like this, I can see him leaning on him a little bit. So I do like over on receptions for Dalton Schultz or reception yards. I think I'm going to lean on the yards here if I was going to choose one. But again, there's a ton of weapons on this team. It's kind of hard to decide which way you want to go. So that makes me a little bit nervous. Again, going back on the Tampa Bay side, looking at Tom Brady, that line is 277.5 in passing yards. Now, he's cleared this in about 53% of the games he's played this year. Dallas is ranked 24th in passing yards allowed a game at 200.9, and then rushing yards a game, they're allowed almost 130 at 22. So that my biggest worry is that O-line, man. And he's just struggled. And it's like if they get to him, he's not mobile enough to get out of there. So I'm going to lean lower on Tom Brady's passing yards. I think he's going to throw the ball a ton, unless they want to lean on Leonard Fournette and playoff Lenny here. But I just don't trust it. I really don't. Interception wise, he's had interceptions in 4 of his last 6 games. It wouldn't surprise me if he threw a pick here and forced something down. So maybe you want to take a chance on that. Completion wise at 28.5. He does throw a lot of short checkdowns. He does have basically all of his weapons here. And at 28.5, he has cleared that in 6 of his last 7 games. Passing attempts at 42.5. Besides the game in Atlanta before that, which didn't matter because it was one of those games where we knew he wasn't going to play the whole game because they had nothing to play for. But before that, he did clear it in 6 of his last 6 games. So if I was going to lean anything at Tom Brady, I would look at more of completions or attempts is where I would lean on this. Leonard Fournette, are they going to lean on him more here? Or are they going to play some Rachaad White? They like to play a little bit for everybody. Now we've seen them lean on Lenny last year in the playoffs pretty heavily. Rushing yards at 36.5. It's tough to say what they're going to do here, right? Is he going to sling the ball a ton or are they going to run it? Now, he did run for 127 at Dallas that first game of the season. 36.5 just feels awful low to me. But we look at snaps over the last 4 games. I'm throwing the Atlanta game out because it's just not really important. 47, 58, 60, and 46. Just feels like a spot where they're going to give Lenny the ball, man, honestly. I'm going to go with higher than 36.5 rush yards here. 4 receptions. Again, he has no problem checking him down. He's had 4 or more receptions. I like the receptions as well. If you don't want to go this one, I have no problem going receptions with him. He's had 4 more receptions in the last 5 games that mattered. 6, 6, 4, 9, and 4. I don't mind if you want to take that. They're both, I think Lenny's going to be involved quite heavily here. So I do like a lot of his stuff. 10.5 fantasy points. If he gets in the box and a touchdown, that should be an easy over as well. So if you want to go higher on that, I like it. And then rush attempts, right? The rush attempts are hard for me just because, White has been playing more. The 10.5 number, he's only cleared that in twice, since basically the last 10 games. So it's pretty tough to take that. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if they come out and if he has success early, they could just pound the ball. If we're going to look at Rachaad White and see what he's got going on, rushing yards wise, they have him at 35.5. He's only cleared this in 3 of his last 4 games, 56, 38, 36, and 22. Playing 53, 39, 36, and 50% of the snaps. Again, throwing that landing game out. Going to stay away from him, honestly. Same thing with rushing attempts at 9.5. I'm gonna stay away from that situation. I really think they're gonna lean on Lenny here, playoff Lenny a little bit, and I do like his marks a little bit more. Chris Godwin, it's a guy that he leans on extremely heavy when it comes to targets. Mike Evans is kind of that deep ball threat. Godwin's more the guy that's getting a lot more of the receptions. Looking at 69.5, that line has moved up a little bit. He's cleared that number in just two of his last 5 games. With so many weapons, it's hard to touch this. Reception wise, though, throwing Atlanta out of the mix there, 5 of the last 6 games he has went over this mark. But again, it's tough to take this part. That's a high number for receptions. I'm going to kind of stay away from Godwin here. Evans had the monster game in Carolina. He had 10 receptions that game, just absolutely monster game, 207 yards. I think he had 3 TDs that game, and that was crazy. That was the first time he's had TDs back from October 2nd, where he had 2 touchdowns. He had no touchdowns, basically for 2 months, 3 months, and then put up 3, 5 receptions. That's basically probably the line it should be. I don't want to touch it. Reception yards at 65.5. Really only takes 1 deep ball from him. But I don't really want to play that if, the lines feel right with these passing. And like I said, if I was going to lean anyone, I would look at Godwin at receptions, but 7 seems pretty high here. And then the last ones they got here is Kate Otten, Russell Gage, and Sukup. If we want to look at Gage a little bit here, let's look at Otten. 3 receptions, 23.5 yards. Just hasn't been involved as much with these guys, basically fully healthy. I just kind of want to stay away from that. Russell Gage, thrown out the Atlanta game, he has went over this in those 3 games, 59, 65, and 33. Maybe they forget about him a little bit. You want to take a chance on higher on this one, but they all make me a little bit nervous on this Tampa Bay side, just because they can go so many different ways. I said Godwin's the one that makes me the one I want to take the most of, but I still don't really want to guess here. Sukup over 1.5 field goals made. Do we want to go down that road? I've kind of seen his field goals. He's only cleared this number once in his last 8 games, it looks like. Yeah, once in the last 8 games, he had 4 field goals. He did have 4 against Dallas. Maybe they stall a little bit more and you want to take a chance on the over, but it's a tough one for me here for looking at this. So that's what we're kind of looking at here. Again, if you do not have an Underdog account, use that promo code CashKeg and get yourself that 100% instant deposit match up to $100. And again, it should be a fun game. It's weird kind of seeing Monday Night Football for a playoff game like this. I think what we're going to do is, I think both teams might lean heavier on the run here. So maybe we see an under in this game, but it's really hard to pick. Like at Tampa Bay, it's really hard. Tom Brady's never lost against Dallas, but maybe this is the time. Dallas is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team, so hard to trust them. But hey, with that, again, appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you want more plays and picks and also our stuff that we have over on our Patreon, make sure you sign up. Use everything in the description below. And again, I will see you guys on the flip side. Deuces.